typical 75-year-old wealthy white male would probably give up 99% of his fortune to be an attractive 18-year-old male. Right. And so there is biological capital.
Right.
And when you're young, you have a lot of biological capital. And then possibly what you do is you exchange some of that biological capital for monetary capital as the biological capital deteriorates. And it doesn't look to me that, like, it's not self-evident at all that that produces all the advantage on the side of the people with the monetary capital. Not at all. In fact, a lot of what you spend your money on, if you have monetary capital, is the attempt to regain biological capital. So the analysis of where the Pareto distribution advantage lies is very unsophisticated.
Well, and that's why, I mean, we'll have these kind of debates, and the question is, if you're concerned about an injustice, is there injustice? Absolutely. What are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do? Is there injustice? Of course there is. Let's go do something about it. There's either incredible opportunity or extremely unfair injustice. Go pick something to do. Well, if you're not willing to go get an apprenticeship or go do work or go save one person.
Well, that's the other problem too, is that I think that the universities have offered young people a really easy way out because they're looking for a pathway to virtue. That's part of the messianic impulse of late adolescence. And the universities say, well, all you have to do is identify the problem, one problem, when there's actually like 1,000 problems, and not obviously reducible to a single problem. And then all you have to do is oppose the problem. And that's not right. Like I talked to this woman, Temple Grandin, who has redesigned all the cattle handling facilities in slaughterhouses across the world. Autistic woman from the University of Chicago. Absolute genius. Amazing person. And, she cared about animal welfare, but she was a realistic girl. She grew up on a farm. She knew what animals were like. She's no pie-in-the-sky dreamer. And autistic people tend not to be. And she spent her whole life working on that problem. And she's ameliorated a tremendous amount of animal suffering, but not because she was concerned about it. Because she was concerned about it, and then she devoted her whole life to it. And that's how you accrue genuine moral virtue.
Well, think of it. We would tell her story as a hero story.
Definitely.
Of like, this is what you go do. Oh, and by the way, it's going to cost you your whole life. Oh, and the other question is, if you're not going to spend your life on that, you're going to spend it on something.
Yes, absolutely.
And so let's take one step. Let's go help one cow at the, like if you're going to help animal cruelty, let's go do something about one animal to rescue it in a systematic way you could build. So we have people from the lots of left, right in the active network. But they believe in principles of fair play and freedom, and and they sign off on these things, and then you have a debate, and that's what reasonably competent people who want to fix something actually do.
So you've talked about what you're doing in preschool, elementary, junior high, high school, etc. Talked about the apprenticeship programs and the distributed games and the multiplicity of games and the idea that each person has something valid to contribute without that degenerating into a mindless equity outcome game. What's happening what are you doing on the higher education front?
So we have kind of a moonshot project that probably won't work, but we're working hard on it. And it's this question of, how do people discover their calling? Now at the academy, because we start so young and they're in it all the time, people will find not their calling, because when you're young, that's too big, but their next great adventure in life. Like, what am I going to do for 2 years? And so we think we've developed the right questions to ask, and we've actually given back our MBA accreditation and closed the MBA school, successful as it was, because we could only serve 50 people a year, and that wasn't enough. And so we've created a series of challenges you can do in the real world with a group or alone that are out in the world doing it, that will help you figure out what you should do with your next great adventure in life. We're going to run probably 100 people through it. We're running 100 people through it now. And the end of this process is to be able to stand in a room full of people you've invited and say, this is what I'm going to do next. Here's how I'm going to measure it. Here's who I am and where I come from. Will you help me? I need not money, but I need an introduction. I need a piece of factory floor. I need something. if you will, here's what I promise to give back in return.
Right, right. So it's like an investor pitch in some sense.
It's like an investor pitch for your life.
Right, right.
And our foundation is willing to give up to $100,000 per pitch. Now, a lot of them are $1,000, right?
Yeah.
I mean, $100,000 has to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's tied to you actually following through. And the idea is if we can get this delivered out in the world, and you're using a phone, it's not distance learning, it's like a GPS. Like it's something you can communicate with your friends and get together. We're trying to see if we can find the patterns of how people actually stumble into an adventure or calling.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
by these talks, having them like TED Talks all around the country.
Yeah.
And that we're going to use that for our high schoolers, but also use that to attract people of that age and college age to try to find what they want to do with their lives.
Yeah.
So that's a grand experiment. It's in the early stages.
Yeah. Well, we tried that, as you know, we tried that a bit with our future authoring program. And one of the ways that we've helped people narrow in on that, it's like, well, what do you want to do? Well, that's a pretty vague question, and it's very global, and so it's complex and daunting. And so we broke that down into 8 things that people generally do. You know, what's your vision for an intimate relationship, family, friendship, job and career, education,